Hey, everybody, it is Trags Mike Petralia alongside Richard Skinner of Local 12. This is the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod following, lo and behold, a Bengals home win, 41-24 over the Las Vegas Raiders. And I want to get right to it, Skinny. How good should we or Bengals Houday Nation feel about a win over the now 2-7 Vegas Raiders?
Enough to keep your interest going for sure. It's nice that Joe Burrow and Trey Hendrickson put their Superman capes on, and they're certainly capable of that. Probably Joe more so and more times than Trey, and that's not to demean Trey by any stretch, but Joe is the quarterback is still the most vital part of a football team. I mean, both those guys, it's two of their three stars, right? With Jamar Chase being the third. And the two of them not only played up to superstar expectations, they played above it with their performance. So you feel good that they're able to do that. But at the same time, it's, until you beat a team of significance, which they've not done, as we've documented, they're 0-4 against the teams that are, playoff teams, winning record teams. It's hard to believe in this team. Now, that being said, the way Joe Burrow cooked today, we've seen him get on these rolls right around this time of the year where he suddenly gets really not just hot, but extra hot. And we've asked him to carry the load of, hey, if Pat Mahomes can do it with his array of guys, why can't Joe Burrow do it without, a T. Higgins or Jamar Chase? He's not going to have them moving forward. Well, he did it today. We'll get to this in a moment, obviously. He did it without a guy they were going to feature today, or at least be a part of the plan today in Jermaine Burton. So he did it in a major way with a bunch of guys that, and Mike Gesicki has 2 touchdowns. Drew Sample has a touchdown. Chase Brown has a touchdown. Reception. It wasn't Jamar Chase that caught the touchdown passes today. It was 4 other guys not named Jamar Chase, and there was no T. Higgins. So that's the thing you can hang your hat on, is you've seen Joe Burrow do things like this before and carry a team for an extended stretch of time, and he's going to have to do it, especially with Baltimore coming up. But it's hard for me to believe, Mike, and you can certainly chime in on this for yourself, and I think you'd agree. It's hard for me to believe until they beat a team like a Baltimore.
Right, and I will give them this much. They beat a team like Vegas, like they should beat a team like Vegas. And what impressed me maybe most of all, they got down early 7-0. You could feel the 65,000 in the stands go, oh no, it's not going to be good. They don't have Burton. And there was a bad vibe, a bad feel. Ironically, there have been a couple of games this year, namely the Washington and Philadelphia games at Paycor, where they started with a 7-0 lead, and that was the high point. Well, today they flipped the script, did the Bengals and Burrow. Burrow on his first drive, 7 for 7, in a 13-play, 70-yard answer drive to Vegas's touchdown. And on that drive, I thought the biggest play of the game, the 4th and 3 completion to Tanner Hudson.
Yeah, I mean,
if that play doesn't get made, the Bengals could go down a very slippery slope, Skinny.
Oh, the boos would have started. The pressure would have mounted. Here we go again. The defense would have felt backs against the wall, and we just couldn't stop them on the first drive. Now we have to stop them to keep this within, a one-score game even that early. And so, yeah, I think that's a great point, Mike, is it gave you a chance to get that touchdown and then breathe, and you don't get that touchdown with a Tanner Hudson catch. And, not a complete redemption moment for him, but let's not forget he had one of the biggest blunders of the season in that opener against New England, where he reached across the goal line trying to score and fumbled it away. So good for him. But yeah, I thought the answer was big. Then the defense kind of settled in. Then it got wonky, obviously, with Joe throwing the pick. That I'm still scratching my head of why you're throwing it sideways there, and what are you doing? And they, Vegas has the ball again, down just 2 scores with a chance to make it a 1-score game, and then they melt down, which is what they do. And then the last touchdown's the last touchdown. Nobody cares about that. Good, other than Desmond Ridder and UC fans, so good for him for leading that drive. But yeah, no, I think to your point, that was a huge conversion and a huge answer.
Joe Burrow started this game 15 for 15 for, I believe it was 107 yards passing. He was perfect the way the Bengals needed him to play in this game without 3 of his significant weapons that you documented, Skinny, already. He didn't have T. Higgins. He didn't have Zach Moss. And that is concerning going forward.
Pass block wise.
Pass block wise. That is concerning, no question about it. And of course, as you said, he didn't have Jermaine Burton. He also didn't have Charlie Jones. Now, that isn't as big a picture in the offense as it is special teams. Trenton Irwin had to fill in this afternoon for Charlie Jones, but there were a lot of pieces missing. And I haven't even mentioned, oh, yeah, by the way, the starting left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr., missed the game as well with a knee issue. Now, maybe they get T. Higgins and Orlando Brown Jr. back for Baltimore on Thursday night, short week, and maybe they get Charlie Jones back in there too, but a groin injury can be tricky. What impressed me today about Joe Burrow, and I wrote about this on CLNSCincy.com, Burrow did it without a lot of his weapons there. To me, he's getting paid what he's getting paid to win games like this when you don't have certain weapons. Go out and be the difference. And Joe Burrow was, at least on offense, certainly the difference.
I make fun of you all the time, Mike, for being, the guy from New England, and you bring up Patriots references. But there's a lot of truth to, Tom Brady doing that with yep. Listen, it was nice when he had Randy Moss and you saw what that looked like, right? That was otherworldly when those two were together. But he did it with pedestrian at times receiver. He did it with some good ones. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, obviously, Gronk, and certainly Randy Moss, the brief period of time he had him. But he also did it at times with other guys
Chris Hogan,
superstars. Yeah, right. Chris Hogan. Pat Mahomes is kind of doing that now. He's got Kelsey, but Kelsey hasn't had a great year, and he's getting up there long in the tooth. And I think that's what great quarterbacks do. And I thought I'm writing something along those lines. I haven't finished it, Mike, because I'm trying to tie Trey into it. I don't want to write an extra story. I want to try to tie Trey into this. But I thought, to your point of this, not only did Joe do that, but the times he extended plays in the red zone and bought enough time to get touchdowns, because there was nothing clean about those red zone touchdowns, right? Chase Brown play, he had to scramble. Right. The only clean touchdown pass was the one to Gesicki down the seam at the end of the game. Everything else was a scramble, not a complete crazy scramble drill, but him having to buy times. Early in the second half, he scrambled for a first down, a 10-yard run where he extended a play. He extended a couple of other plays. And I think those are the things that make a guy like him special, of doing it when you don't have all your weapons at your disposal, doing it by creating plays with your feet and keeping plays alive and showing the poise and all the things that make a great quarterback a great quarterback. And he clearly did all those. He checked all those boxes today. Yeah. He had Jamar, but Jamar had I got it right here, 11 targets, 7 catches, 43 yards. The last couple of weeks, I think Jamar has 16 catches, Mike, for less than 100 yards, I believe. I think it's 97 yards in the last 2 games. Teams have obviously said, you ain't going deep on us without T. Higgins, my guy. We'll let you catch a few here and there. And you're going to catch a few here and there, but you're not doing anything else. Okay, and that's a big part of taking that away. In addition to then when teams do that, going, well, fine, take him away. I got number 5 on the other side. I'll throw to him. And this is what great quarterbacks do, and Joe did that clearly today.
I asked Joe Burrow after the game what Mike Gesicki said about Burrow. And I had asked Gesicki in the locker room about this, and then I asked Burrow about this. Mike Gesicki said to us in the locker room that Joe Burrow is one of one. He has an incredible, intense, competitive personality, both off the field and on the field. And today we saw that with TV cameras caught him slamming his helmet after that failed series. I believe it was late in the third quarter. Third quarter, by the way, Joe Burrow told us after the game, wasn't one of our better quarters
nope.
Of offense. And indeed it wasn't. But you could see the frustration mounting with Joe Burrow, and the Bengals had a 31-10 lead, 21-point lead at that point when he was going off. And that was a message from Joe Burrow to the rest of the team. I don't care what the scoreboard says. Okay, I care how we're playing. Is this good enough going forward? It was good enough today to get the win, and Burrow admitted that. But going forward to beat Baltimore, it's nowhere close to being good enough in terms of the execution, in terms of the substitution patterns, by the way, which were, I think, thrown into the grinder a little bit, into the jumbler, simply because they lost Eric All Jr. to a knee injury. And we'll get to that later. But Burrow sets an expectation. And Burrow's quote was, I'm going to have my standard of play, and I'm going to have my idea of the standard of what we should live up to as an offense, the coaching staff, myself, everybody. When I feel like we live up to it, I'm going to let us know. When I feel like we don't live up to it, I'm going to let us know too. And that's what you were seeing on the sideline today from Joe Burrow late in the third quarter. And I thought good for Burrow.
Yeah, no, I think the other part to it, he was asked, and he gave kind of a stock answer to, would this performance today have beaten a better team? It was something along those lines, and he gave the
Right.
stock answer. It was good enough today, and that's fine. I don't expect him to really answer it the way we'd like him to answer it, but I think that was a legit question based on the way he. I don't want to say acted. I mean, the way he reacted, I guess, to the situation. And I think he does realize that, guys, listen, you may think this is all fun and games at the moment because we're kicking their ass. This isn't good enough against Baltimore. We can't stall out for a drive against Baltimore. We can't spit out 2 drives against Baltimore. We have to execute everything because they had, I think, 13, or I don't have it in front of me. I got it close, but it's either 13 or 14 possessions, which is just a crazy number of possessions by NFL standards. We've talked to coaches before, Mike, and it's true. I mean, you play Baltimore, you get 8 or 9 possessions usually. I mean, you got to do the most with those 8 or 9 possessions because they bleed you dry. They're a little more explosive than they have been, but still, those possessions are limited. And I think that's what he realizes is, hey, we can't let a possession get away. We have to execute on everything. He was angry with Ted Karras about, look like a protection situation. He was angry even after I believe he threw that touchdown to Gesicki and he was on the sideline. It looked like very angry when Jermaine Burton came dancing across the camera shot of him, which is not a very good image. But I think that's listen, I know people may look and go, dude, shut up and just, you won the game. Be happy with how you played. No, I think to the point of it is there is a standard. I use this line all the time as a coach. I can be really happy when we lose and you guys play up to the level that I expect. And I can be really mad when we win and you don't play the way I expect you to play. And I think that's the way he is yeah, you won and you played well and you did some good things and there's things to be happy about, but you also understand that this probably isn't going to cut it when we play the better teams that are left.
Jermaine Burton. Clearly he was disciplined. Zach Taylor would not come out and detail what the discipline was. Just saying there were things late in the week that Jermaine Burton did that earned him a healthy scratch. And that means clearly he was benched. Yes. He was disciplined. Let's not mince words here.
No, Zach said he was part of the plan. And we knew it as the week progressed. We knew he was going to be part of the plan. It was talked about openly.
Correct. So I don't want anybody reading into this. Well, that they just made a game time decision. No. He was benched for disciplinary reasons because he hasn't grown up yet by NFL standards. That's the easiest way to boil it all down.
Mike Hilton literally said that. Mike Hilton said, "Hey man, it's time to grow up. It's time. You're a right. grown man. Be a grown man."
Right, and that is what I was a little surprised that Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor said he's going to be a great player for us.
They're trying to salvage him, I think, Mikey.
And they are trying to salvage him, but there is part of me, Skinny, the old guy from the 70s that wants to see the leaders, and maybe they're doing this behind closed doors and we don't see this, come down with the hammer on the kid and say, kid, you're in the NFL. It is time to grow up. There are some locker rooms where you leave outside the door, you have to pass through the veteran keyhole, if you will. Guys that are the captains, guys that if you screw up like this, like Jermaine Burton is alleged to have screwed up on Friday and Saturday by either no showing or oversleeping or just not being there in the facility, you've got to answer to the players before you ever answer to the coaches. And to me, that's where the concern is. Are there players, forget the coaching for a second, are there players that are going to hold him accountable in that locker room?
So that's a great question, and I based on the way Mike Hilton talked today, I don't know if Mike's talked to him directly, but I clearly think that Mike Hilton would be one of those guys. But it would be, listen, Jamar's a goof at times, right? T's a little bit of a goof, but both those guys are pros, man. You can think what you want of T, and I've heard people talk all week. Maybe he's got the contract flu. No, he doesn't. He needs the ball out. He knows he needs the ball out. He's legit hurt, and that's part of the issue with him. But it still stinks. So you would think he'd learn from those two guys of what it takes to be a pro, and both of those guys prepare to be ready for games and not just that, but even above and beyond. So to the point of your thing though, here's my take on this and please jump in when you think I'm a little off base. There's a part of me that the reaction of Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow today, where they talked in terms of he's going to be a good player, he's going to come along, we're going to help him to get there. I think they believe that deep down, but I also wonder this, that you have to leave the door slightly ajar for him to play on Thursday night if T. Higgins can't go. That's literally what I think it is. It has nothing more to, because I truly think if they really meant business, that they would have today come out after the game and said, we are suspending Jermaine Burton indefinitely because of conduct detrimental to the team. They don't have to tell us what it is, whether, to your point, it's a late to a meeting, late to a practice, not showing up, sleeping in meetings, all the stuff that's out there, and probably has a real hint of truth to it for sure. There's probably nothing more than that. But I truly think that they realize we got to win Thursday night. And if we have to have this guy and just literally drag him by his knuckles to the facility to get him there on time for the 1.5 practices we're going to have this week, we're going to do it because we might need him if T can't play. Now, the flip side is if T can play, doesn't shock me if they make him inactive just to, again, teach him a lesson. And then after that, if T's back healthy, then maybe the next discussion. Because the thing is, Mike, again, I'm trying to play both sides of it. I get why Zach's doing what he's doing. I get it. But there's also a part of me that says, dude, you've given him every inch of rope you can give him. Because this isn't like, listen, these whatever has happened at the end of this week isn't the first time this has happened, folks. And I think you've got the picture now, fans, of why he got 24 snaps or 25 snaps in the first 7 games, played with the scrubs in the preseason, all the things that people are scratching their going, how's this guy not get on the field? Look at his talent when he plays. I think now you're figuring that out, which we've all tried to tell everybody, that there's more issues than just whether or not they can get him on the field because of his talent or whatever. So I go back to, maybe one more indiscretion. Let's just say T plays Thursday and they make Jermaine inactive because it's showing him again. And then there's one more indiscretion. I think that has to be it for the year. And I'm not so sure they don't just step forward and go, yeah, that's it. You're done for the year. Maybe we can salvage you next OTA. We'll let you come for the OTAs. You show up on time for your stuff. You're attentive in meetings. You feel like you get it. We'll keep you. If not, by training camp, see you later. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope he salvages his career. It's sad. I think something's wrong with the kid, Mike. When you knew and they told you that you're part of the plan, they repped you as part of the plan. And for whatever it was, if it was him not being able to show up or being late, and you can't even be professional enough to be ready for this game, something ain't right with that guy, man. Something ain't right.
Okay. Someone mentioned this to me in the press box today, and I went, I do wonder about this. If Joe Mixon or Tyler Boyd were still on the team, and we know their reputation for handling younger players, especially Mixon's reputation. He had his off-the-field failings, no question about it. It's been well documented. But on the field, in the locker room, he was respected. There was a reason he was a captain. Would Jermaine Burton get a talking to from Joe Mixon?
Absolutely. And from Tyler Boyd. And I'm sure he's gotten it from Jamar and T and Joe and everybody. And he still doesn't get it. That's the part to me. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think it's a legitimate question to ask, Mike. I think it's a real good question to ask, to be honest with you. Because I think Tyler went through not this, but for those that maybe not remember, his second season, the second game of the year against Houston, he was made inactive. They'd had enough of whatever his act was at that point. After having a really good rookie year, he was really good as a rookie. And then game 1, he plays as his second year. And then game 2 against Houston, they make him inactive to send a message to him for whatever that was. And I'll give Tyler credit. I remember the Monday after that game, he stood, or whatever it was, the Friday thing, because it was a Thursday night game, I believe. He stood in his locker and answered every question. And I think came to realize whatever it was he did, I screwed this up and I got to fix it. And from that point forward, he was a consummate pro. He learned the lesson. I don't know if Jermaine can learn that lesson. It just doesn't feel like he's going to come close to learning that lesson. I do understand why you try to Father Flanagan this, and because the talent is really clearly obvious.
No question.
He's a talented player, but there's more to just talent to be able to play in this league. And so back to the original point, I think they're just what they said after today. Because I don't know if you could say, I think my jaw dropped when Paul Dehner Jr. asked, is there going to be further discipline? Because the question literally was about to come out of my mouth and Paul beat me to it, which is fine. And I was waiting for, we're going to suspend him for a couple of weeks. He needs, and it was, no, not at this time. And I went, oh, And then in my mind, I thought, okay, you're making sure I get it. You're making sure that if whatever he does this week is right and you need him on Thursday, you got to have him on Thursday. And that sucks. That's professional sports, though. Nothing. There's no teaching a man to be a man like a high school coach does. I mean, there's no helping you grow up. I mean, either you can or you can't. And this is all about wins and losses and nothing more. And that's where we're at with this situation with Jermaine Burton.
Injuries are part of the National Football League, Skinny, but the Bengals sustained 2 in the Sunday win over the Vegas Raiders. That could be alarming. Eric All Jr. planted his foot in the turf and his knee buckled. That was in the second quarter. Same knee, the right knee, that he had ACL surgery on in October of 2023 at Iowa. He left the game, obviously did not return. He was walking around in the locker room, but after the game, Zach Taylor told us, I'm very concerned, but I won't know more until Monday, which means he'll get it tested.
Right.
He could be out for the rest of the year. Then there's BJ Hill. He entered the locker room with Chris Jenkins and Joe Burrow. As a matter of fact, I have video of it out there up on our Jungle Roar YouTube page, as well as the X at Trags, TRAGS. But you see the video of BJ Hill with his arm clearly by his side. It looks like his right arm is in a sling. And that was for a rib injury. Now, maybe,
I was to say it was a ribs injury, right? Yeah,
rib injury, but that probably means they didn't want him moving his shoulder or his oblique to irritate it more. Those two guys are two guys I don't think they really can afford to lose for Thursday night, but they're probably faced with that likelihood, correct?
Yeah, and I hope for Eric All it's not season ending, because, I mean, this is back-to-back years. Then he would have ended his season almost a year. I think he suffered his knee injury in college last year in October, had surgery, was able to come back. So we're talking about roughly a year later. It doesn't seem right. And for those that are wondering, to your point of, I literally, when I went to interview Mike Gesicki, I kind of was alarmed because Eric All locker's next to him, and I looked up and Eric was standing in his locker. But then the thing off my head of, you are able to actually walk when you tear your ACL. As goofy as that sounds for a lot of people, you can walk around with that situation. The way Zach reacted, I honestly, Mike, I thought he was going to cry at one point. I really did, because I think you can feel the pain he feels for that kid to battle his way back and be productive. I think when they drafted him, we all believed, oh, that's a good pick, and it's going to be a redshirt year, and down the road, maybe this guy's going to be the guy, and he's given them a physical presence. The thing I will say is the tight end room is deep. He does give them something, though, that probably they don't have, which is a full 3-down tight end who can run block, be a pass catcher, all of those things. But it is a fairly deep room. I mean, you're left at the moment, if he doesn't play, with Tanner Hudson, who was effective last year and made that big catch today, to your point. Mike Gesicki had a 100-yard receiving day today. And Drew Sample, who's always shown his niche role. They love him, and he catches a touchdown pass today. Trust me, I'm not here to tell you good that Eric All got hurt by any stretch, but it is a room that's deep enough to sustain that. But he does give them something. The BJ Hill one, to me, is really concerning. I mean, even Mike, if it's nothing major, we're talking a short week with a rib situation. I just wonder, can he be ready to play? And for the most part, the rest of those tackles have just been meh. And I don't want it to be, here we go again at the tackle position. You're not in dire straits where you were earlier this year when you were missing McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins is playing with a club on his hand, and there was no BJ Hill and there was no Sheldon Rankins. Right now it would be no BJ Hill. It's not complete dire straits like it was, but BJ Hill is their best defensive tackle, period, end of story.
So we mentioned the injuries that the Bengals had coming into the game. We mentioned the injuries, the 2 significant ones during the game. Is this at all going to force the Bengals to make a player acquisition at the trade deadline?
It's a great question. I think today, if you were thinking along those lines, the fact that they won doesn't hurt. That, hey, you're still very much in it, and you go make a move for a pass rusher. I mean, there's still, as much as Trey Hendrickson got home today 4 times. No, and I think McKinley, I don't know who else got the other sack. It was basically Gardner Minshew fell over a pile of people in the middle of the field. You're still not getting anything from the other end. Miles Murphy didn't play many snaps today. It was mostly Joseph Osai, and Joseph isn't exactly getting home. So to that point, is it a pass rusher? Is it a corner. I mean, the corners today at times looked as bad as they've looked at times this season, getting turned around, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Part of it, thank goodness for them that they were playing Gardner Minshew and a couple of pedestrian wide receivers, and Jacoby Myers was one of those, and he still had a 100-yard day. So, yeah, they don't do it, Mike, as we know, but this may be a year that's different of that, of, you know what, and it's been weird. I know you've tracked this. There's been hardly any draft capital of significance given up to acquire players from other teams. I'm not sure there's been above, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure there's been a pick above the third round that's been given up to get a guy back. And so, we were joking a handful of us today of, at the running back position too, which you didn't mention, it's potential that Zach Moss's injury lingers and might be longer than this, and you have to go to the running back market. A couple of us joked of, trade Jermaine Burton to Kansas City. They seem to like these reclamation projects for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And so there's a part of me that thinks we're going to be writing a trade deadline story on Tuesday that they acquired somebody. And I wouldn't have believed that. I actually poo-pooed that on a couple of podcasts a couple of weeks ago of why bother wasting your time of talking about this, people, because it's not going to happen. But now I think it probably, if you believe you're in this and something can help you, you better damn well go do this.
Well, and when and a lot of Bengal fans know what both of us have written, and that is the Bengals have acquired 2 players in a trade mid-season since 1972. That's 52 years, and really only one of significance, and that is, of course, Hall of Fame receiver Charlie Joyner from the Houston Oilers back in 1972.
That was a great trade. They gave
Incredible.
They gave up aging Paul Robinson, who aged extremely quickly after being 1968 Rookie of the Year because they handed him the sweep every time because they were an expansion team and they had no other play to run. Right. And Fred Willis, who for whatever reason had gotten into the doghouse, for Charlie Joyner and a very serviceable starting linebacker in Ron Pritchard. That was a great trade. So that would make me go, let's go to the well more often with that. And 50 years later, they haven't gone to the well at all.
Well, and now in this, and granted, I think everybody out there, listening to our pod and watching our pod understands that the dynamics of roster building have changed drastically, right?
But so's the trade deadline, though, Mike. It feels like teams are treating it like the baseball trade deadline.
And now, what the Bengals, what any team does is, if they're sellers, they don't want players back. They just want draft picks. Right. And the way the reason I hesitate to think that the Bengals will actually acquire a player before the trade deadline on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern is because they value the draft picks so much that they're not willing to give up a 6th rounder for Josh Uche. I mean, that's where we're at with all of this. And that's, if you're a Bengal fan, I think that's got to be a little bit frustrating.
Oh, and it's a great point. But because, listen, the flip side, the argument I would make for the Bengals is this. If I'm paying Joe Burrow and I have to pay Jamar Chase, and I am going to maybe even think about extending Trey Hendrickson another year, and I'm already paying him significant money next year, and I may have to go out and fix my safety room next year and get a corner and get an interior offensive lineman, it's going to cost us money. And so what else do you need to offset the money you would pay? You need dudes on rookie contracts. So I understand that. That's the side I would make for the Bengals. It's easy for fans to say, go make a trade. Gotcha, man. You're right. You're not wrong as a fan to suggest that they need to improve this roster and do it now if they're going to make a playoff push. But again, you have to also think long-term of what's going to be on the roster moving forward. Who are you paying? What's it going to offset when you have rookie contracts? I know people are alarmed this year when the Bengals ended up keeping all their rookies, right? But financially, it was almost like, yeah, you need to have dudes on rookie contracts. That's the importance of quarterbacks being on rookie contracts or stars being on rookie contracts, is you're not paying them that crazy amount of money. You better have that. But at the same time, if you're in it for the short term, and that's the part for me, I think the short term, Mike, as goofy as it sounds, is more salvageable than the long term. I think they have a lot of long-term question marks looming in this offseason, to the point I just made of what you have to do to maybe fix this roster, and that's a lot. But in the short term, if you can get a player who can be of significance that can, maybe not be ready to play Thursday, but be ready to play by the Chargers game and come out of the bye 5-6 and look and go, Pittsburgh's beatable twice, Cleveland's beatable, Denver's beatable, Dallas, hell, Dak got hurt today. It probably may not affect him then, but they're a train wreck. You could look and go, we can go 5-1 after the bye with a better roster and an addition or two. I think you have to think about it. And again, I'm the guy that literally, so I'm typically being a or not typically, I'm being a hypocrite. I can typically be a hypocrite. I'm being a hypocrite here because a couple weeks ago on my own podcast with Rick Broering, I said, just stop talking about this trade stuff. They're not going to do it, guys. They're not. And now I'm thinking maybe you will, and perhaps you should.
Okay, we cannot wrap up this podcast, the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod, without talking about one, Chase Brown.
Great performance.
Best game as a pro. 27 carries, 120 yards, an explosive 21 yards. We saw from Chase Brown explosive plays. We saw from the Bengals the ability to actually run the ball against a team like the Raiders, who have Max Crosby, but not a lot else.
Right.
They come out, they go full bore to get to Joe Burrow, and the Bengals were able to keep him honest with Chase Brown today. On a day, as we've said before, they did not have Zach Moss. In addition to the 120 yards rushing, Chase Brown also had 5 catches on 5 targets, 37 yards. So that's 157 all-purpose yards for Chase Brown. What stuck out the most to you, Skinny, about Chase?
Just to his credit, the durability. He took a shot to the ribs, I guess, right before the half. We saw him go in the locker room, and sometimes that can mean a lot of things because he was about to come back on the field because it was a play where they weren't sure if Andre Yoshevach got in the end zone and they were reviewing it. He trotted the locker room stop, and I think he thought they were returning. He was going to come back in, and then he realized it was a touchdown. It was like, so we've seen guys do this 1,000 times. And we always overreact. When you see a guy, when a guy's limping to the locker room or being helped, he wasn't. He was walking on his own. It was, right. Sometimes you got to do your business early. Yeah. Sometimes you need an IV. And for a guy that had that many touches on not a hot day, but a warm enough day, who had that many touches, you need an IV. He took a shot to the ribs, so went in maybe early for some treatment. I thought the durability of Chase Brown, it was funny. I was standing there waiting for him at his locker. A handful of us were, and he got in the locker and he kind of sat back and he was taking his socks off and he kind of winced a little bit. Probably in pain from either the ribs or just from getting hit all day. And I kind of looked at him and I smiled and shook my head, and he shook his head back at me a little bit. And so he kind of motioned like, I'm good. So I went in, I said, you look beat. He goes, I am whipped. And he, but it was one of those ones where I'm whipped, but I think he was really happy to get a chance to have that workload and show what he could do. Mike, I swear there are so many runs he has where part of my mind goes to, he gone. And it doesn't happen all. It's just, you just see it because it happens so fast, and he's so quick and shifty. That's like, he's got one more dude to beat and he's gone. I still think he's got a 75-yard touchdown run in him at some point this season. I really do. He's just a likable guy. I'm happy for him because he just does his work. He would be a great mentor for Jermaine Burton of, hey man, I wasn't a high draft pick. In fact, I was a lower draft pick than you. And I was playing behind dudes, and I just shut my mouth, and I came in and I got hurt. They wanted to play me.
I did get and I know.
Oh, understood. There's no question. Different guy. Dude. Different guy. But maybe he's a guy that gets to a Jermaine and says, man, dude, just honestly, they're going to give you your chance if you'll do the work. And that's what this guy's done. Began the year behind Zach Moss in theory, right? Remember early in the year, we were asking questions of Dan Pitcher of, it seems like it's trending more towards Zach Moss. And he said, nah, it's going to even itself out. Just you guys wait. It'll do it. And it's more than even itself out. It's gone the other way to Chase. And again, I don't think people understand the importance of Zach Moss. I don't. He gets a lot of dirty yards that don't look pretty. And his pass blocking is just superb. And they missed that, and they're going to miss that moving forward if he misses extended period of time, which it sounds like. But I'm happy for Chase just because he does everything the right way and got his opportunity to finally go, hey man, it's your day. We're going to give you all these touches. And to your point, on 32 touches, that cat goes for 157 yards. Pretty good.
And again, I don't know if we talked enough about what Trey Hendrickson did today. I know we touched on the fact that he had 4 sacks, career high. He also leads the NFL in sacks, Skinny, with 11. That's pretty impressive. And, we have to, you and me, have to sit here and go, we killed him against the Eagles when he was getting beaten like a drum by Fred
and rightfully so.
Johnson. Yeah. But he was, and he was asked about this after the game. He had, by Charlie Goldsmith of the Inquirer. He had a game like he did against Philadelphia, and he responds with a game like he had today. And that just, I think, speaks to his professionalism and his ability to say, I'm going to flush last week down the drain, and I flush a bad game down the drain. I'm going to flush this game down the drain because in 3 days or 4 days, we have the Baltimore Ravens.
I mean, what better examples can Jermaine Burton look around that locker room at the guys like that? And that's where, to me, there's something wrong with that kid. There's just if you can't see what some of these guys do on a week-to-week basis, how much it probably killed Orlando Brown to not play today. I mean, Orlando Brown had never missed a game in his career. He'd missed, I think, one practice in his career and couldn't go today. That dude would have done anything he could have to play, and you can't even do whatever you're supposed to do to show up or do what you're meeting, whatever it is. You can't even. My guy, good Lord, wake up.
I hope he gets the message, Skinny, because he's an incredibly talented receiver. But, he's going to get the message when he gets the message. But
good or bad, Mike, good. The message may come in the form of see you later. But, yeah, he's going to get the message when he gets the message.
Well, the Bengals have a short week, Skinny, and we all know that. They have Monday essentially as a rest day, so to speak. Then Tuesday, they have a full day of practice. Wednesday, they travel to Baltimore. And then Thursday, they have the game at 8:15 at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. Almost a year to the day.
Crazy.
Where Joe Burrow popped his wrist on a hit. We believe it was on a hit from
Jadeveon Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney. Thank you. It's late. Believe it or not, it's late. But anyway, he returns to the scene of the crime. Can the Bengals revive their season in a major way with an upset? We're going to look ahead really quick, Skinny. Do you think they have a legitimate chance of pulling the upset?
Legitimate, yeah, because I do think this team has one more good swing in it. Last year they went to Baltimore. They needed that win to kind of not stay afloat, but push themselves forward, and they lost, and it felt like hope was lost. And then they lost the next week, and then up comes Jake Browning, and he kind of revives things. It's not do or die, because like I said, I think if you could at least split the next two, and that's not easy because the Chargers are playing great, then yeah, you've got a pulse. But it felt like today the Ravens, after that hiccup in Baltimore, really got that hiccup in Cleveland, really got themselves back on track. The whole week was weird. It felt like, is Lamar going to play or not play? Well, then Lamar plays today, and he's stupid good. And Zay Flowers has been hurt, and he plays stupid good. And that's a really good Denver defense, as you know. And then they were great defensively, which they haven't been this year. The only thing I think I can hang my hat on is Baltimore hasn't been great defensively. Today, I might chalk it up to, you played a rookie quarterback who was playing on the road in Bo Nix. And he's been good,
right?
But it's still a rookie quarterback on the road at a really good team, and those kind of teams can really mess that guy up. The thing for me today would be, did the offense kind of get out of a funk? Yeah, it's helped by the Raiders not being good, but it's a Raider defense that came in today tied for 11th in yards allowed. I mean, they've been hamstrung by the offense's turnovers. So yeah, I think they got a puncher's chance. They played them toe to toe here, and the kid doesn't drop a snap, they probably win that game.
What are you working on, Skinny? Postgame on local12.com.
I've already written my Jermaine Burton piece. It wasn't a column. I write columns, but I also write news stories. I did that kind of just as a news story of, what transpired today. But I do have a column kind of along the lines of what you said, Mike. I'm doing it kind of along the two guys who can be Superman, put on their Superman capes, but also along the lines of, that Joe Burrow, his competitive nature really showed through today, and I think that can carry this team at least a decent way the rest of the way.
All right, he is Richard Skinner, does an amazing job, and has
so do you, Mike.
Decades on local12.com covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Be sure to follow his stuff on local12.com as well as on the exit, Local 12 Skinny. be sure to follow him there as well. That'll wrap it up for this edition of the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod. Bengals win their first home game of the year in 5 tries, beating the Las Vegas Raiders by a score of 41-24. We'll be coming at you from Baltimore. Skinny, you're making the trip, right?
Yes, I am. We'll
be
there
have
together.
Some crab cakes pregame.
I'm more of a crab leg guy than crab cake guy.
All right. Well, I do both for the record. So anyway, we'll have to have some of those and some beverages to wash it down. We'll both be in Baltimore. That's the long and short of it. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody here, that Skinny and I will both be at M&T Bank Stadium. And that will be the next time we come at you with the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod. Again, thanks for watching. And until Thursday night, have a good one, everybody.